All right, we're going to try this a little different this time. Welcome to the Writer's Room. This is Rob Alvarenga, also known as Screenwriter Rob, from the Movie Talk podcast with Joe Zapata and Dave Kalari, brought to you by Zapata Brand Media on this YouTube channel. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that sits at the heart of great storytelling, and that's finding clear motivation and distinctive voices to your characters. So this episode actually comes from a fan question that we got on the Movie Talk podcast some time ago. And I honestly realized that I may have misunderstood what was being asked of me at that time. So I wanted to revisit that question and dive deeper into this topic and then provide something practical that you could use in your writing. So before we start diving deep into this topic, I want to remind you writers out there that before you start writing your screenplay, there should be a few foundational things that should already be in place before you even start writing Act 1. You should have an outline of your story. You should have a treatment or a synopsis of your narrative. 3, there should be a history of what has led up to the story you're about to write. And finally, 4 should be a real deep understanding of the characters you are going to write that are going to carry your story. You have to know your characters inside and out. And what that means is that you need to know their personal history. You need to know the lives they've lived before the story begins. You need to know who they are psychologically and emotionally before circumstances in the screenplay that you write change them. Clear motivations and distinctive voices are things that the audience experiences on screen, but they originate from all the work that you do behind the scenes as a writer in your character development. So let's break this down one thing at a time. Let's start with clear motivations. You are going to have to answer some questions about your characters long before you introduce them to your audience. These are questions that are like, what moves your characters? What is it that they want more than anything? What are their desires? And what are their strategies to actually get those things? And does it really work for them? If you do this right, your audience is not going to need those answers spelled out in dialogue. They're going to see everything they need to know about your characters through your character's action. And as you're writing your story, and as obstacles begin to appear in it, these challenges are going to test, sometimes shatter, everything your characters believe about themselves. And guys, as always, I like to give you some visual examples of what we're talking about here. So my first example is Oskar Schindler in Schindler's List, 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg. At the beginning of that film, Oskar Schindler is a successful industrialist and opportunist in the Nazi regime. His motivations are very clear: profit, power, status. But as he witnesses the horrors of the Nazi regime against the Jewish people, his motivations change. He begins using his influence and wealth to protect as many Polish Jews as he could. So what starts out as greed evolves into moral courage. This transformation works because his motivations are grounded in every stage of the story. Another example I'd like to offer you is the character Neo from The Matrix, 1999, directed by the Wachowskis. His initial motivation is curiosity. He wants to know what the Matrix is. But he's not ready to accept the truth about himself in finding out that answer. Only when he lets go of his self-doubt and limited identity that he embraces the role of the one. In this transformation, his motivation changes from simple curiosity to bearing the responsibility for the survival of the human race. So now let's talk about distinctive voices. On the podcast, I understood the question being asked to be in reference to regional speech or accents on characters. And yes, that could be part of your characters having distinctive voices, but in reality, distinctive voices means that it's a reflection of who your character is. I'll give you general examples, and you'll know what I mean. So, for example, if your character is a bully, he's going to speak in very condescending and dismissive tones to other characters. If your character is an introvert, he's not going to have too much to say, and he's going to be very guarded or measured in the words he does say. If your character is an extrovert, he's going to talk a lot. He's going to be the center of attention. He's going to dominate conversation. So now that you get the idea, one thing you should really understand is that every single one of your characters in your script should sound very different from any other character that you have in there. In the script, Those voices should be so distinct that you should know who is talking without looking at the character's name on paper. So again, distinctive voices are a reflection of your character's personality or who they are. Distinctive voices should be a direct reflection of your character development. They go hand in hand with your character's motivation, belief systems, and behaviors. How your character speaks will reveal what they want, what they're hiding, how they see themselves in the world. As I mentioned in the podcast, if your characters are supposed to have some type of regional dialect speech or accents, please write it in plain English. Let the filmmakers decide how they want to actually show that on screen. Your job is to create the deepest, most authentic version of your character on page. And this brings us to the end of another Writer's Room episode. Guys, this episode stemmed from a fan's question on the main podcast. So I want to keep that going. So feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Give me questions on your writing process or writing thoughts. And maybe we could put together another episode based on what you want to know more about the writing process. And finally, don't forget to catch me on the Movie Talk podcast every Wednesday at 9:30 on this YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like. So until next time, guys, keep on writing, and I'll talk to you soon.